It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life. The kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
Welcome to number 48. This is the Growth Podcast. We have another exciting conversation on this particular edition of the podcast. If you're watching and you're here for the first time, welcome to the podcast. I hope you subscribe. If you've been watching and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the podcast. That is one way of supporting this initiative. Today we're talking to a gentleman who's built a career spanning over 2 decades, I should say. He has one of those careers that you spend in one organization for a very long time and then finally made the move to pivot. So I am talking about Mr. Webster Twaambo. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Okay. So currently he's serving as the Chief Executive Officer for Clapton Reinsurance, which is basically a reinsurance company. I'll give you a chance to explain that and how it differs from insurance, and then we'll go into our conversation. But before we do that, I've got some icebreaker questions for you. So I've got these cards. I want you to pick 3 of these cards. And okay, let me do this. I don't play cards, so this is hard for me. Okay, okay, cool. So pick any 3. Okay, that's 1. That's 2. 1 more. All right. So there were questions. Ask the question and then answer it.
Wow. Which one do I start with? The easier one. What choice had the greatest impact on your life? What choice had the greatest impact on my life? Just one, eh?
Yeah.
The biggest choice was giving my life to the Lord.
Okay.
Had the biggest impact.
And when was that?
That was 1998.
Oh, you've been around.
In high school.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that was the biggest
Okay. Next question.
choice. Yeah. What's your definition of success? Well, my definition of success is beyond achieving your goals, is achieving your purpose, living a fulfilled life.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the final one?
What controversial opinions did you enjoy sharing with others? This one, I would say, being involved in a long distance relationship sounded controversial. It was controversial at the time because people were saying it can't work. But for me, it worked. So I was in a long distance relationship with my wife when we started dating in 2007. By then she was in the US. She had already left Zambia. So there were these voices around saying, no, long distance relationships don't work. I said, I'm giving it a go because I believe this is the one. We met twice when we were dating. We dated for 3 years. The third time she came, it was on the big day.
You did it for 3 years. You only met twice.
Yes.
And the third time you're meeting, you're getting married.
Yes.
That's a special one, eh? Yeah, I understand why it's controversial. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. Ish. Okay, so earlier I was talking about the fact that you are in, a reinsurance. You worked at professional insurance for a long time, and then you went into reinsurance. Maybe for the sake of people who may not know, just tell me the difference between insurance and reinsurance.
So within the value chain, you've got the end consumer, the person who buys insurance. Okay, so insurance is about, this end consumer transferring the risk to a third party called an insurance company. So it essentially, insurance is about transferring risk, okay, from one party to the other. So it's a mechanism. So when you have a motor vehicle, you transfer it to an insurance company, then the insurance company also transfers this risk. Based on their financial muscle, they will retain some risk and then retain the difference to another party called a reinsurer. So if you like, in simple terms, reinsurance is about insurance of insurers. And it's whereas insurance is more localized, reinsurance is more international in nature. So you can, the license that you have here in Zambia from the Pensions and Insurance Authority gives you the mandate to write business from across the world.
Oh, okay.
So that's reinsurance. So it's B2B. So you don't get to interact with the final consumer, so to speak.
All right.
I hope.
Yeah, I believe, I have confidence that your question is enough. So, like I said, you began your career at professional insurance, but I want us to build from university, because for most people, I think now we're having a situation where it's very competitive just to get a first job. How was it for you, off high school, university, into a first job?
Yeah. So first of all, my plan was to go and study abroad. I must mention that, the stage was not set for me. I didn't find the stage set for me. It's like I was starting life from the negative, such that I needed to work very hard to come to zero.
Yeah.
So in pursuing my vision, my goals to, ensure that I make a difference in my family, then I was aiming for the very top options. So I wanted to go to the US to go and study. But then along the way, reality dawned on me. I didn't have the financial muscle that I needed. I didn't have maybe the opportunities I had couldn't enable me to achieve that dream at the time. So what I did, soon after high school, things were very tough for me. So I was in Ndola. I found myself in Ndola. That was towards the end of 2002. And then as I was trying to, settle down, find my feet, then I firstly stepped into Zambia Bata Shoe Company. Because first of all, whatever you're doing, you can't do on an empty stomach. So certain things that we do in life is to ensure that our basic needs are met first, while keeping our eyes on the big picture. We have our needs met. So to put food on my table, I joined Zambia Bata Shoe Company. I was there for 8 months. I became skillful such that when I just look at your foot, I can tell the size of your shoe. To date. Okay. I can even try it on you. But
what size do you think I
I'll tell you. And these should be a 10 or 11.
No, I'm a size 9.
Size 9?
Yeah, size 9.
Oh,
one of those shoes that look very comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah,
10. Okay. For the Bata shoes, maybe. Anyway, not far off.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then things started getting, I think after leaving Bata for 8 months, then things became very tough for me. And then I started hustling. I was buying clothes from Lusaka, take to the Copper Belt, sell, buy beans, rice from Kasama, go and resell in Ndola, and so on and so forth. And then one thing I must mention, I was very active in church. I used to go to a church called New Life Ministries. We used to meet at Broadway under Bishop Nelly Chikwanda. So I used to be very active in church. I used to be active in the praise team, also active in the youth ministry. So I made myself visible. And one day, there was this woman who reached out to me. Like, oh, Sunny, I overheard the manager in my company, that was Professional Insurance. They're looking for a cashier. So I thought about you. Can you give it a try? That's how I jumped on that opportunity. And I was told there was maybe 7 of us that were interviewed. I was interviewed 5 days later, but I became the best candidate. And that's how I got the job in 2004. That's where my career started as a cashier, an underwriting assistant. And then I only had grade 12 certificate. So what about the dream of going to the US to study? So I think between dreams or theory and reality, I think I chose to be pragmatic about it. And when I stepped in professional insurance, I had to be intentional about ensuring that I still achieve the dreams that I had. And I was very fortunate that I got this boss who liked me. So the first few weeks of being there, he called me to his office then, and told me, Webster, I would like to mentor you in your career. I said, wow, I melted. True to his word, I'll talk a little bit more about him as the conversation goes on. He lived to his word. And for me, that was one of the people that played a critical role in my career. Then I remember the first appraisal I did with him. I was a top performer, right? But my weakness was I didn't have qualifications. I only had grade 12. And I had seen a lot of people with just grade 12 in the company and in the industry, comfortable, it was working for them. And I said, I'm not going to join this. I'll not be like that. I told myself, my journey is to the top. And the question is, how do I get there? So my first appraisal with my first boss, he highlighted my weakness. So, there's self-assessment first, then you discuss. So in my self-assessment, on my weaknesses, I put some moral weaknesses, I can't remember what I put. Then when I was discussing with him, they told me that, no, here, Webster, we're not talking about, moral weaknesses and whatnot. Here we're talking about professional weaknesses. So you have 2 weaknesses. You lack experience and qualifications. That feedback was very painful, but that was the reality. But then, as Jim Collins says, that, face the brutal facts as they are. Face the reality or the brutal facts as they are, but never lose the hope that in the end, you will prevail. I took that as a challenge and then converted my weaknesses into strength. I remember just after a few months in the organization, I saw some friends getting loans to buy this and that, I got a loan to begin my studies at ZBIC then, Zambia Business Insurance College Trust. And I directed my efforts day and night. After work, I was fully dedicated to school. I completed my study in record time at ZBIC. I enrolled with the Chartered Insurance Institute, became qualified, became a fellow. I still progressed to do an MBA. After an MBA, I did my Master of Science in Strategic Planning. And after I did that, then my first boss then was the MD of the company. And then I was fortunate to be appointed the strategy implementation champion of the organization. So I was fully involved. I was driving strategy, so to speak, based on the skills that I obtained from my Master of Science in Strategic Planning and so on and so forth. Then I realized that, between where I wanted to be and where I was, there was more I needed to do in terms of skills. So I noticed that I needed skills in finance because my aim was to get to the top. I was very intentional about it. So that's how I enrolled for a degree at the University of Zambia to do finance and accounting. And I was fortunate that I graduated with honors, but I didn't end there. Currently, I'm pursuing my DBA. I'm passionate about contributing, to the development of insurance in Zambia, and I'll talk about some of the things that I've been involved in.
Okay. What factors would you say contributed to your rise in the organization? Because the role you joined with is not the role you exited with in the organization after 17 years in professional insurance. What do you think you did? What factors really played a key role in your ascension to management of the organization?
First of all, the road to the top is for those who are intentional. You have to be intentional about what you want to achieve. I spelled out my journey very clearly, and they say depending on your journey, that's the amount of fuel you need to put in your tank. So if your journey is up to Kabwe, you put enough liters to see you to Kabwe. But if you know that you're going to Nakonde, you need a full tank. How do you get the full tank? You need all the skills necessary so that when you get there, you don't crumble. I was very intentional about this journey. That's the first factor, being intentional. So it's important to be deliberate about something. It won't just happen. Number two, it's about taking personal responsibility. No one will do things for you. Things that you're supposed to do as an individual, you cannot delegate. And I always say that this is something I've captured in my book, that we have to come to terms that no one owes us anything. This African mentality of the dependence syndrome, where you want to blame someone for whatever happens. You fail an exam, you want to blame your grandmother in the village. You fail a job interview. I'm an orphan. I haven't made it. If you're an orphan in your 20s, by the time you're in your 40s, 50s, you have children, they will not understand that you're an orphan. It doesn't, it's like certain excuses have expiry dates. They expire. You can no longer leverage on use excuses. So it's very important for one to take personal responsibility. It's on you. If you're sick, Suilanji, you're married, you love your wife, you cannot delegate. the taking of the medication to your wife. You have to take it. Otherwise, you will not get healed. So taking personal responsibility is critical. Thirdly, I've embraced the principle, the Kaizen Principle. Kaizen is a Japanese terminology which means continuous improvement. I've resolved to be a better person every day. A better person than I was yesterday, which is continuous improvement. I will not arrive until I get a certificate which I will not see, which is a death certificate. So my orientation to my progression in life is that every new day gives me an opportunity to become a better person. And this is why I've continuously upgraded my skills to ensure that my tank is full. I'm ready to undertake this journey. And then the other point is that, I've discovered that sometimes the best players are in the stands. What do I mean? When I look at some people occupying certain positions, I see that sometimes they're not the best. There are better people actually in the stands. What am I talking about? Time and chance happens to them all. The race is not to the swift, no battle to the strong. We know that scripture. But time and chance happens to them all. So the question is, what do you do with an opportunity that you have? And then tying to that is the law of consistency. How consistent are you? If you are going to the gym, if you want to be fit, you can't go to the gym just one day. You go to the gym at 6 hours and come out at 18 hours and then say, I'll take a break. You won't be fit. You're better off spending 10 minutes a day consistently and you're going to be fit. So the law of consistency is key. Being consistent at what you do. And then you have to play to your strengths. So early in my career, I resolved to play to my strengths. And one of my strengths is writing. So I remembered when I was in high school, I took part in this competition. It was a national competition it was things sponsored by Africa and so on and so forth. I used my initiative to participate in the competition and I won it was an essay competition. I won the second prize. So there is that background of writing, which I can talk about. And then at some point, I think it was 2012, I started writing. I think that time I started publishing an article in the Times of Zambia. And that did two things. Number one, it put me in the limelight. It enabled me to be visible. I became visible to people. Because at the time, I think I was the only one publishing an article on insurance week in, week out, consistently, which led to the publishing of my first book on insurance in 2013, which I was fortunate to be the first writer to write a comprehensive book on insurance in Zambia. And I must say I'm very grateful to my employers at the time. They sponsored the printing of 3,000 copies. And we had a launch at Intercontinental Hotel. And that time, the one who did the forward was Twaambo Kanyama. That's how I connected to him. In fact, when I was reaching out to him, I was just trying because, the fact that the stage was not set for me, I needed to work hard to set my own stage. And I knew that if someone sees a book and sees that it was written by Webster Twaambo, who is Webster Twaambo? I needed to strategically find someone, a name out there which is easy to sell. And I identified Twaambo Kanyama because he had worked in the insurance industry with Zisk. So when I reached out to him, he was like, "Oh, you're the one who writes in the Times of Amanda." My strengths at work, opening doors for me. So he did the forward, and at the time he was DG of ZNBC, and the launch was covered by ZNBC, and he actually featured on the main news, ZNBC. So that was my strengths at work. So it was playing beyond my job description, going beyond what I was supposed to do. Actually, when the MD at the time saw the article, he called me Mr. Silutongwe. I hope I can mention names here.
Don't worry, it's okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Silutongwe called me and said, "Webster, I'm very proud of you. Spending your spare time, writing articles, informing masses and so on. This is very good," so on and so forth. Then it became easier for me to convince my employers to fund the article, because Times of Zambia then told me that they needed to find a sponsor for the article. Then when I shared with my employer, they said, "Look, we cannot allow anyone to touch this. We are going to sponsor it." And they sponsored my article up to the time I paused. That was at about 2021 when I joined Clapton, but because I had to do some trade-off. The responsibilities were too much. The other factor really is the role of mentors. I must say I was very fortunate to get this mentor. My first boss, Mr. Geoffrey Chirwa, who committed to mentoring and coaching me in my career. He played a very pivotal role in my career progression. He exposed me both locally and internationally. And the other factor is about effectiveness. Effectiveness produces results. You are measured. Effectiveness is what produces performance. No amount of skill, no amount of intellect, no amount of time will produce performance. It is effectiveness, results. I became results oriented because at the end of the day, Soilange, I'm reminded of the story of Jesus Christ at the point of controversy, and where he had to tell the disciples to say, "Look, believe me that I'm from the Father based on what I'm saying. If you struggle to believe that, believe me because of the results." You cannot argue with results. Therefore, as a career person, results should speak for you. And that speaks to going an extra mile. Beyond what you are required to do, go an extra mile. And the final factor is character. Character is everything. So it takes time to build your character. Those values that you have embedded in you, exhibited in your character, integrity, hard work, and all those values around which are embedded in you will manifest in your character, which is what people are going to see. That's how I'd summarize some of the factors and even lessons that I've picked from my short career of this is my 20th year.
Short career indeed. And obviously not every person in the organization is, rooting for you to succeed. How do you begin to identify people that are going to play a key role in growing your career? How do you identify, for example, who should be your career sponsor, who should be your mentor? How would you advise people to go about doing that?
That's an interesting one, Suilanja. And what I can say is there are people who are genuinely interested in your progress. Like in my case, I've cited my first boss who was genuinely interested in my career progression. Then there are those who think you are after their position or who think you are competing. But there are also those of like-mindedness. Okay, I remember a friend we shared a flat with. We shared a lot in common. We were encouraging each other to do school. We did school together. He was a year ahead of. He joined a year earlier than me, and those are the people. I think it's important to identify those of like mind who are not going to drain you. There are people, if we're honest about ourselves, about life, there are people who feel comfortable when they reach a certain position. So you can imagine you get a promotion, your second promotion, and then those you find there become your peers. And can you imagine if for them they have arrived? But meanwhile, for you that's a stepping stone. So you need to identify those, who've got similar ambitions, those you can relate with. They say iron sharpens iron. So align yourself with those, with similar goals and ambitions and so on and so forth. And then sometimes you can identify people who are working against you, or they're not supportive of you, or some people want you to fail. But I think what is key is, first of all, you pray for them. And the God factor is so real. So I'm a believer that, in everything you do, there's God at work. Pray for them. And do your part. If work requires that, you work with them, it's not everyone you work with that you like. Let's face it. I've been in situations where this employee, is in a situation where no supervisor wants to work with them. Then I remember giving this person an opportunity. Because sometimes what we hear about certain people is not what they really are. And sometimes when you give them an opportunity, you find actually that they are actually better people. So it's not an easy one, but I think you can see those who have like mind and then align yourself. And, sometimes it could be people beyond your organization that actually become very helpful. You could probably be doing similar things. You're at school together. Maybe you're in other cycles outside your employment. So that would be my take.
Okay. And earlier on, you referred to visibility.
Yeah.
How do I create visibility for myself in the organization?
Well, so there's visibility within the organization and visibility outside the organization. So within the organization, everyone has a JD, okay? Job description. There's this role which they're supposed to play. That's the bare minimum. It's the expectation. That's what you sign for. All right? So it's unlikely that if you just do what you signed for, that you become very visible. The question is, how do you go beyond what you signed for? First of all, you need to do what you're supposed to do. You need to do it to the best of your ability. Excellence must be seen in you. All right? So when you do your work, actually you attract the attention of other employees because you'll be actually used as an example. I remember when I was a branch manager for Ndola branch in professional insurance, sometimes we would meet our annual budget in July. Meet your annual budget. So when you go for strategic review sessions, you find the MDs referring to your works. Say, like Ndola branch, Webster, can you share with everyone what you are doing right? Okay. Then I remember when I was appointed, I was given an acting opportunity to sit in for the manager in Solwezi 2008, 2007. I went there, I did my best. And then when he was transferred, then the management reached out to me to transfer me to go and take over. And then within a year, we were able to grow the branch by over 120%. And then based on those results, I was given a bigger role to manage the second biggest branch in the organization in Ndola. So I only had a short stint in Solwezi, then went back to Ndola to go and manage the biggest branch. So I think that's what I would say on that.
Okay. The other thing I want to find out is what are some of the qualities that you feel as an employee, for example, in an organization, I need to have for me to sort of have not really an upper hand, but for me to really position myself to thrive in the career, a quality that will make a difference between me and my, colleague in the organization, that positions me to maybe be identified for promotion, be identified for further career progression, be identified for more opportunities, for more training, just to rise in the organization. What qualities have you seen that maybe have worked for you and work for others as well?
Yeah. So first of all, I think this links to the previous question of being visible. So, of course, as part of the visibility strategy, is going an extra mile. Go an extra mile. When you have done what the basic requirement that is expected of you, then go an extra mile. You're having a function, go an extra mile to deliver invitation cards, go an extra mile. It's different situations, different things you can do, but just go an extra mile. Like in my case, to increase my visibility within and outside the organization, I utilize my writing skills, which increase my visibility. And even within the organization, people would reach out to me, for help and so on and so forth. Because, those 5 sources of power, expert power is one of them. So you find that you have this power, you're in a lower position, but you have this expert power, which people you can use actually to draw people to you. Then some of the soft skills Soilanja have seen is, I told you some earlier that, sometimes the best players are in the stands. Best players are watching instead of being in the desired positions. There are many issues or factors, but I'll point out a few. Number 1, being easy to work with. Being easy to work with is often an underrated skill. how do you make the work of your supervisor easy or easier? There are some employees who just make things difficult. I've seen technically sound people, very good technically, well qualified, best skills, but on the soft skills, they just make things work difficult for you. But on the other hand, there are these people who just radiate this, they are very easy to work with. They put themselves up there. And when you're comparing the two, you definitely want to work with someone who makes life easy for you. So the soft skills, being easy to work with, is one of them. Then secondly, if you're aiming for a position, you need to do an analysis of where you are today and identify the gaps. What do I need to have in order for me to be in the next position or to be in that position? Do an analysis. When you have done your analysis, fill the gaps. If it requires you to obtain certain skills, do that. Go to school, go for training, or whatever is required. So that at the end of the day, remember I said, results. It's effectiveness. How effective are you? When you're given something to do, how effective are you? So I think those are some of the things that can help someone, get that promotion. Put yourself out there, be visible, be easy to work with. Let people want to be, around you because there's something you have to offer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you have something to offer, people want to be around you, And at the end of the day, Soilanji, I have some few years at the top of an organization. As a leader, you want results because your performance is based on the input of others. So you want to make sure that, you get the best talent, the best people around you. You delegate things to the people who can deliver, employees who can deliver, employees who are easy to work with, so that when you put everything together, the results will speak about the organization. And then if your staff are failing, then you are failing as a leader. So it's from that perspective where on the other side now, you have to say, okay, how can I contribute to the organization so that my contribution is relevant, is felt, is visible? So when you think from that perspective, then you position yourself or you are a candidate of promotion. Extra mile, visible, and having the right skill set. Because at the end of the day, let's say if everyone has the same skill set, we have 4 people, 1 position for promotion. Who are you going to get? It's the soft skills that you're going to look at. So that's what I would advise people to work on, soft skills.
Okay, so all of us obviously start out our career, there's no one under you. As you rise, you become supervisor, you've got 2 people, you become manager, you've got maybe 4 or 5 people, become CEO, you've got a whole organization under you. What are the dynamics of managing people, really? What really goes into managing people? Whether I am a supervisor with 1 person, or 3 or 4, or a whole organization. What are some of the dynamics to managing people?
Well, first of all, there's a research which was done by Cousins and Posner, yes, on exemplary leadership. The first characteristic is inspiring a shared vision. Okay. As a leader, you're the source of inspiring that vision. People must be able to get inspired by the way you articulate, you communicate that vision. So, number one, you must inspire a shared vision. Of course, there's this temptation of, especially if a leader is insecure, he doesn't want to bring around potential,
replacement.
That's being. It's dangerous to have an insecure leader, because then they don't create a platform for talent to thrive. One of the things that I've personally done in running an organization is to create an environment where talent thrives. So having created that environment, I inspire a shared vision. Then I walk the talk. I cannot be talking about meeting deadlines if I don't meet deadlines. I cannot be talking about acquiring skills if my staff are not seeing the skills in me. They must see the effort. I must lead by example. I must walk the talk. If I've called for a meeting, say at 8 hours, then I'm showing up at 8:30. I'm not leading by example. I need to be there on time. I must walk the talk. Thirdly, delegation. You must enable others to act. Give people a platform to shine. Delegate responsibility. And as a matter of fact, as a CEO, you cannot do everything. You need people to help you. So identify people who can handle certain tasks, empower them to make decisions, empower them to do those tasks, and you see them flying. Then encourage the heart. Encouraging the heart is about recognizing performance, rewarding performance. Celebrate small successes. Okay, so when there's a small success, you are the target, you achieve the target, celebrate it. Sometimes it doesn't have to be in monetary form. Sometimes it's praise. You praise someone who has done a good job. So I find these characteristics of exemplary leadership very key in managing a team. So create an environment for the team, for talent to thrive.
Okay, and the personal SWOT analysis, where you, as an individual, I know you touched earlier around, this is where I am, this is where I'm going, where are the gaps? How do I conduct a personal SWOT analysis of my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and be honest with myself? Because mostly you want to massage your ego and everything is okay. Weaknesses, you're even, feeling lazy to talk, but you want to focus on the strengths. How do I conduct a personal SWOT analysis, and why do you think that is important for one's career?
I like the way you've put it, because, if you're not honest with yourself, what are you doing? I think one of the first factors I mentioned earlier is about taking personal responsibility. Now, if you cannot be honest with yourself, really, who is going to be honest with you? You are in that position, you're in that situation, you're the person who understands better. So it's very critical, especially if you're aspiring to progress. Because, if you turn a blind eye to your weaknesses, this is why people overrate themselves. They think they are the best for this position because they are focused on their strengths. Okay? But, weaknesses can also be very visible. And if you don't address the weaknesses, you're just focusing on the strengths. When that opportunity comes, then it's going to pass, because people will feel that your weaknesses will stand in the way. So it's very important, Soilanji, you sit down. First of all, as you sit down, you must appreciate that you're on a mission, you're on a journey. And for you to get to your destination, or you to achieve your goal, you need to be very clear about your strengths. Mostly strengths are easy. Everyone wants to, even sharing, If you ask me to share here, mostly I'll share about my strengths, not my weaknesses. But I earlier shared my 2 weaknesses I had in my early in my career, which with the help of my boss, we identified. And when you have a supervisor like that who can even point your blind spot, certain times you may not know certain things, and there are some people I've seen where they are not just getting it. An opportunity comes, you think they'll get it, it just passes. An opportunity, they go there to another organization. When they're just about to get it, just passes. There are certain blind spots. And, when you have an opportunity, or when you have a leader, where as you're sharing your, as you're doing the appraisal or the assessment, they can give you feedback, because blind spots mostly come from people who are speaking to you, who know you. But beyond that, I think you have to be honest with yourself. What are my weaknesses? And the best way to do it is, if you take, if you're aspiring for a certain job, okay, get a job description, okay? Then look at the requirements, okay? Then you assess yourself. Okay, here I'm ticking the box, but this one I don't have. Okay, so if you don't have it, then maybe it's because of your weakness. For instance, you're lacking a certain skill. That's a weakness. Then you begin to action. Your view is to convert your weakness into strength, or to minimize their impact on your progress. So a self-assessment, an honest self-assessment, is very critical, and only you can do it.
All right. For a manager, someone who's overseeing the affairs of others, what would you say are some critical skills like you must have, whether you like it or not? You must have these skills as a manager.
Well, for a manager, the critical skill that you need to have firstly is leadership. Being a manager and a leader can be different. Okay, so a manager, you are looking at how to make the most of the resources that you have, okay, to get the most. It is important. But leadership is about influence. So how do you exert influence as a leader to your team? So that is very critical. And for a manager, you need to spend a couple of hours or time to understand how you can exert influence on your team. And the best influence that you can exert is through your life, how you lead yourself. Okay. So having said that on leadership, then it's very important to create an environment which is, focused on performance. So as a manager, you need to ensure that you help everyone understand your philosophy. They need to understand that at the end of the day, you will not be judged on the hours that you put in, but on the results, effectiveness. So any manager needs effectiveness. They need to understand the skill of managing with effectiveness. Of course, there's efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency using little resources. For instance, you can kill a mosquito by spraying target. You can also kill a mosquito with an atomic bomb. But if you're using an atomic bomb to kill a mosquito, you're not efficient. Just spray using target, it's gone. But then effectiveness as well, getting results. So as a leader, you need that. Then you should also recognize that sometimes the best skills are in your team, even better than you as a leader. So you need, to create an environment where talent thrives. So you shouldn't exhibit insecurity as a leader. You should be, you are appointed in that position, you have a contract, and it's your position. Don't be scared. Don't be insecure about those that are shining under you. In fact, when they shine, you are the one who is taking the credit. So it's very important that, as a leader, your role is to direct people, to the common goals, and help everyone align.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on friendship in the organization? Building friendships in the organization.
Well, do it carefully. First of all, the environment that should be there is to ensure that people freely communicate. We spend about 8 hours at work. So that's a long time that we're spending away from home. So, of course, with different people in the work setup, there are some of those that you're going to click, especially at lower levels. There are those that you click. Somehow you just click.
Yeah.
And you build your friendships even beyond work and so on and so forth. But then you should be careful that your friendship has got certain limits. Make sure that your friendship doesn't stand in the way of work. Okay? For instance, you're friends and you share a table during working hours. It's not time for you to start chatting. You're even laughing, as if you're, at a party or something. That's not good. So it should have certain limits. And you should know that when you're at work should come first. Then, I've seen friendships that go beyond work, such that, you remain friends even after you have left certain organizations. And the level of friendship is not the same across. So there are those that you identify, maybe those you clicked with, those that you carry on. But then as you progress, as you go to the top, you have to be careful that, you are seen to treat people equally. Fairness. Okay? So there's this balance now between befriending people and to be seen to be fair. So as a manager, as a leader, you need to strike a balance. Yes, you can have friends, but with limits, especially in the work environment. It shouldn't be so obvious to others that, you like this person more than this. At work, it should be about the goals of the organization, about performance, about getting things done.
All right. After 17 years, you left professional insurance to go to Clapton Re. What factors did you have to consider, and what factors would you advise others to consider when making the switch from one organization to the other organization?
Well, first of all, I had ambitions. I think in my earlier on, I talked about being intentional. The journey to the top is about being intentional. And for me at Professional Insurance, of course, I did my best to support the people above me. And I think they can attest to that. I went out of my way to support them. But I felt I reached the comfort zone. I needed something more challenging. And it was a question of just, it was a timing issue, right opportunity and timing. So I had a lot of offers, being someone visible in the industry, I used to receive a lot of job offers. But then I think the timing maybe wasn't right. There are some opportunities, of course, I wanted to take, but maybe I didn't make it. But then with Clapton, I was initially engaged as a consultant. So I get to understand the vision, the business, get to understand the people behind and so on and so forth. And then when they offered me the job, it was easy to make a decision. It was a step. It was a step up. Of course, I needed to step up. So what I would advise people is, first of all, it's not always greener the other side. You may just realize that actually where you were was actually green enough for you to be happy. So do your homework, do your research, especially for certain positions. Do your homework beyond what you're taught formally. Consult those in your network so that you fully understand where you're going. And, sometimes if things don't work out, don't hesitate to accept that, you made a wrong decision and look at other options. So my thought process there was about, utilizing this opportunity that I was looking for, and I thought I was ready, and the timing was ready. The timing was ripe.
Okay. Looking back at the 20 years in your career, what would you say was the best advice you received?
Wow. My best advice was not to ignore weaknesses. Webster, don't ignore your weaknesses, work on your weaknesses. I think that was the best career advice.
And what 5 pieces of advice would you give to other young people who are in their careers, trying to build their careers?
Number 1, be intentional. Number 2, it's in form of a statement. Unless you see the ultimate, you'll be enslaved with the immediate. Don't fall for immediate gratification. Focus your eyes on the ultimate. Number 3, between the promise and the present is a period called the process. Trust the process. Whatever you're going through within the present and the promise is preparing you for the promise or for that position you're aspiring. So trust the process. Make sure that you are prepared. Fill the tank. Make sure that the tank is full so that you don't run out of fuel midway. That's more than 5, eh?
That's now you're number 4. Okay, number 5.
Number 5, you should have your values very clear. So we learned there are a lot of issues. In my case, I travel a lot. So sometimes, I get exposed to a lot of stuff, such that if my values are not strong, I fall. So your values play a very critical role in your career. The Webster in Zambia, in Lusaka, should be the same Webster when I'm in Singapore, when I'm in Germany, when I'm in Nepal, when I'm in India, everywhere I go, wherever I go, I should be the same Webster. Values, very critical, which will speak to your character. Above all, strive to have a strong, good character.
Thank you.
I appreciate.
You thought 1 hour was was very long. Eh? It's gone. You see, I told you 1
Yeah,
hour
there you
would
go.
go by. Would go by.
I didn't even think of drinking this SWOT.
No, thank you very much for coming to the podcast. Yeah, and I know social media, you're not very big there, but I know you are on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So where's Webster Twaambo on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Okay, Twaambo, is it double A or just one A?
Double A.
Double A.
I used to be very active. Social media also requires consistency when you're posting. But I have 2 pages. So I have the page which I have about 45,000 whatever. I think that's the one maybe. I'm now going. I prefer for professional whatever. Then I have another one, the account which mostly is personal stuff and stuff like that.
Okay. No, thank you for coming on the podcast.
I appreciate Sui. Thanks for the opportunity.
Pleasure is ours.
Yeah.